That is so embarrassing. I have just done 7 minutes of a live stream on the wrong channel. So I've been talking to no one because I set up the PE Home Hub channel a few weeks back for the kids at my school and kids in the in the local area for PE at home, and I've just been talking for 7 minutes on that channel. Whoopsie. Sorry if you were waiting. I'm sure you weren't, but welcome to the live stream on Thursday. Coach is dropping. Feel free to, hi Anna, feel free to ask any questions. I'm going to answer some of the questions that people have asked over the last couple of weeks, or certainly since last week's video went out, and then I'm going to address some things that maybe everybody is thinking about currently in terms of their training and the season. Hello, Spaniard face. So the first one is the question. One of the first questions I had from last week was from Bebas Panther, and they asked me how to train for a 800 to 1500 meter race in 12 weeks. I would say, first of all, this is not my area of expertise. Really short distance stuff, that's not my bag. I'm a middle distance and long distance running coach, but I do have some knowledge and expertise in running in general. So I can give you some basic tips that I think that you need to adhere to if you want to train for a really short distance race like 800, 1500, but I certainly am not the expert on this. You might want a track coach for that, but for what it's worth, my advice is that you still need to build a really good base. Hi, Dan. Oh, yeah, you're in. Welcome aboard. You really need to build a good base, basically, even though you're training for short distance. A friend of mine who's a very good coach, he has a saying, you can't fire a cannon out of a canoe. And all that really means is if you don't have that stable base underneath you, and that means kind of long, steady runs, easy runs, then you can't go hard when you need to go hard. You can't put the hammer down. So you still need to focus on building a nice base. You don't get away from it that easy. But then the other things you need to do are interval sessions that are super hard with really short, intense intervals rather than the intervals that you might be used to if you're a 10K or half marathon or marathon runner. We're not talking about those type of intervals. We're talking about really short, hard intervals. Because remember, an 800 meter race is what, a couple of minutes to the elite, and probably 3 minutes to, or sub 3 minutes to good runners. So you're going to need intervals that are gonna well, what's happening to my background? Why is it so? I think this is, maybe I need to clean the screen up. But you're going to need to do some short intervals, and there are some videos on my channel for short interval sessions, short, sharp ones. But I certainly am not the all knowledgeable on that. But for what it's worth, I would say still build your base, and then the rest do some short, sharp intervals, but make sure there's plenty of space in between and lots of strength and conditioning. Your body's going to need to be strong enough to take a battering when you get to the track. So, oh, hi, Lolo. So you've been working on building your aerobic base and haven't really seen any improvements, just been doing easy runs. Oh, you're working on the math methods. Okay. Honestly, don't worry about improvements at this point. What I would be interested to know if you can tell me, what improvements are you hoping to see? Because it tends to be that aerobic fitness takes a while to improve, but there will be a difference when you go to the top end. But I'm assuming that at the moment you're not doing the top end running, the really intense stuff, so you might not notice the difference down in the aerobic levels. You will when you come into a race or a slightly harder effort. You'll probably realize that there's more underneath that you can go to. That tends to be my experience. Okay, so if your heart rate spikes, so you're run walking, that's absolutely fine. What is happening with the screen? That's really blurry today, isn't it? Hang on a second. Okay, I'll use this. Is that any better? No, not really. So if your heart rate spikes, you just have to take time. Your aerobic base is going to need to catch up, and it's going to need to have time in order to get to the point where it's not going to spike, if that makes sense. So it is, remember that you're building this for the long term. You may not see results immediately, but if you think about it long term, as in your life, it doesn't really matter at this point here whether you're making huge gains or not. Keep doing things consistently, keep adhering to the rules like it sounds like you are, and there will be big progress, and you will notice it, but you might not notice it immediately. Hi from Germany. Hi, Armin. Nice to see you on. And Angus, hello, mate. You feel like you've hit your limit in terms of improving your 10K time. It's currently 37:20. Has it happened to you? Well, yeah, I guess that there are points when you plateau, and there are points that you move on from the distance, like a 10K. So I went through a good period of about 3 or 4 years where my 10K time came down by a minute a year, and I got to 36:40, and then actually I picked up an injury, and then I started moving into half marathons and marathons. So for now, yeah, I think my 10K time has plateaued, but I think if I gave it a fresh focus, I think I would still be able to improve it. I still believe that I'm capable of running sub 35. I know that might sound mad, but I genuinely believe that if I focused on it. But it's a matter of focus. And if you want to, if you want to take some time out and go to a half marathon or even marathon eventually, all you're really doing is building a nice big base underneath that when you come back to a 10K, you'll probably have a bit of a bigger engine in order to push harder in sessions in order to take it down again. So yes, I have plateaued. And every time I run my 10K and get a PB, I'm like, no way I can run faster than that. And then, the next year I do. So don't rule it out. You'll probably be all right. But if you feel like you're plateauing at the moment, then maybe focus on some different distances and come back to it with a fresh approach, with fresh eyes. That would be my advice anyway, and for what it's worth. So I had a question as well from Chris Gray last week asking about how do I take on fluids in a half marathon before and during and after, because he tends to feel bloated during a race, so can't take any more fluid on, and then ends up becoming dehydrated at the end of the race. And my answer to that was kind of a 2 or 3 pronged approach, really. And that is, if you're feeling bloated, then you've taken too much fluid on. But at the same time, you still have to take fluid on. I think it's more how much you take on at any one time. So my strategy is when I wake up, I start drinking. I have a hydration drink, but it is very gradual. I take sips. I don't ever take big gulps. I don't nail drinks. I just very little, very often throughout my day. I make sure that I'm taking on fluid, and hopefully you'll know that you're hydrated enough, because you'll need a wee quite regularly, and without going into too much detail, the wee is pretty clear. So that tends to be when you're hydrated, and you shouldn't feel bloated if you keep taking on little and often, because what happens is if you take too much on, then oh, thanks, Lolo. If you take too much on, that's when you're bloated, but also your body can't deal with that. It doesn't have any place to put that excess fluid you're taking. It can only use so much. So it tends to kind of store it or just shift it straight into the bladder and straight back out. So your body hasn't used it, but you're feeling bloated. And there's a condition called hyponatremia that people can get, which can be very, very dangerous when running longer distances when they've taken on too much fluid. There was a story about someone who drank 8 liters whilst running a marathon, I think, and your body can only use so much fluid whilst you're running, and then the rest it just stores extracellularly until a point when you need it. So this person crossed the line, stopped the running, and the body was like, oh, okay, now the water, now you have it now. And it flooded the body, reduced the salt content to a point that even the nerves couldn't fire because they need salt. It completely diluted that salt content in the body. And unfortunately, that person died. Now, that's an extremely extreme case, but the point is valid that you don't need to overhydrate. I don't even drink on a half marathon. I don't take any fluid with me. I make sure I'm properly hydrated before, and then I drink when I get over the finish line. And if I'm a bit dehydrated, I don't think you're going to severely dehydrate over a half marathon. Put it that way. You're really not going to. Certainly not over a 10K. Never drink on a 10K. I hope that answered your question, Chris. I know it's not the easiest one to answer, but that's my answer. Right, let's have a look. Some questions. So you've been having issues with your right knee for a couple of years after you... Oh, okay. So you've got a bone bruise, and ever since it feels slightly unstable, although doctors told you it... Right. Psychologically speaking, it's probably a bit of a protection mechanism. I tend to, after an injury, even though it's completely healed, I tend to feel it for quite a long time. And I think that is something to do with the psychology behind it all. I run and I feel, after a back injury, I'm like super protective and I can feel it, even though actually I don't think I'm injured at all. Same with my Achilles now. I was running yesterday thinking, can I feel it? Can I feel it? And I don't know if I can. I would say if you are feeling your knee, the best thing to do is really up the strength work and almost start from scratch. Pretend you were never a runner and just go in from scratch. I mean, I'm actually doing that now. I'm running 5Ks when only a month ago I ran a marathon, really gradually, lots of grip foam rolling, all of those things, take it really seriously. And if the doctors say that you're healed, trust them and hope that you are. I mean, they're not always right, let's be honest, but let's hope that they are in this case. I hope that's helped. And any recommendations for strengthening the muscles and ligaments in the knee? Yeah, squats, deadlifts, lunges, anything like that. Really good compound movements that work on not only the big muscles around the knee, but all the little stabilizing muscles around the knee that can help you. So definitely, I mean, the squat is just a gold standard of a movement, really. And I know it's simple, and it's probably lots of people know it, but it's simple and known for a reason because it works. So lots of compound movements around the knee would be good. Mustafa, hi mate. What are my opinions on running with a weighted vest for long runs? I'm not a fan, if I'm honest, and only because I believe that it could well change your technique. Running with a weighted vest, it could pull you forward a bit, it could pull you out. It wouldn't necessarily be the technique that you'd run without a weighted vest. The best thing to do, this is going to sound crazy, but the best thing to do if you want some resistance running, especially through the winter, is put on some weight. In the winter, don't worry about what you eat so much, and that's almost like a weighted vest in itself, but it doesn't change your technique. I know that's a little bit crazy, but I think we can get too caught up in the making sure we're super lean all year round, but actually our body probably needs some rest and recovery over the winter time. And if you put on a bit of weight, you put on a bit of weight. My weight tends to fluctuate a little bit from winter to summer when I'm in kind of winter training mode to race mode. But I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I've certainly never worn a weights vest purely because I just would worry that it would change my technique to the point that I would pick up injuries that I never would have done had I been running normally. I actually think it would affect my gait. If you want to do weights, but that's just my opinion. Other coaches might tell you different, and mine is just one of many opinions. So that's for what it's worth, really. No problem. Hope that answered the question, by the way. So let's just quickly talk A races. Hopefully you have A races still penciled in. Oh, hang on. Let's just answer this question. Any tips for speed? Yeah, short, sharp intervals and long, easy conversational runs. Polarized training, 80-20. Really go hard. When you go hard, go hard. When you go easy, go easy. Don't have anything in this grey middle area, because you won't work on speed or endurance then. So, yeah, find some really sharp interval sessions. A races, back to A races. If you've got one, keep it in there and keep training for it. But it ties into a bit of intrinsic motivation as well. I'm very intrinsically motivated to the point, actually, I can't take praise. I've always been really bad at taking any praise. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. I don't like it. I only run and I only do everything I do for inside for me. I don't even have any of my medals hang out. In fact, I'm always thinking maybe I should put medals here and stuff, but I'm just not about the medals. So I'm torn in between. But the point is, I have an A race. I have Ironman Copenhagen 2020. I missed it last year because of the car accident. I'm doing it this year, whether it's on or not, whether I even get to Copenhagen or not. I am doing Ironman Copenhagen. So on August the 16th, I am doing an Ironman. And if I have to do 180 kilometers on my turbo trainer and then run a marathon from my house and work out some way to swim, it's happening. And my point is this: if you're intrinsically motivated, then it won't matter to you whether you get a medal or not. It won't even matter if it gets recognized by Ironman or not. What matters is that you've trained hard, you've put the blood, sweat and tears into it, and you reap the rewards and improve your fitness. So if you have an A race, don't bail out of it. Even if they say it's been cancelled this year, don't bail out of training for it. Stay strong, keep smashing it, and then do the race on the day, record it on Strava, and you'll be doubly as smug. Honestly, the feeling will be so good that you've done that regardless. I might struggle with the swim, but I've got to work out what I can do about that. Right, let's have a look at some more questions. Hi Lee, how you doing, mate? No, don't worry. I spent the first 8 minutes of this talking on a different channel to 200 people that probably weren't watching, so I wouldn't worry about being late. I was late myself. Alex, it's your birthday. Your birthday is the day before Mary's. Did you know that, Mary? Alex's birthday is the day before yours. So Dan, what have you got? Manchester in October for now. Yes. Sorry, Mary's just twigging. So, however, if you run responsibly, what would be my opinion on running the distance I've trained for locally to where I live? Yeah, absolutely fine. I think it is about running responsibly. My feeling is that almost all of my training on the bike is indoors, but I'm going to treat myself once a week as long as I can be responsible and safe, because otherwise I'll go mad. And I'm just keeping it close to home when I run and doing more laps, so that if anything did happen, then I can get home is the plan. But yeah, run responsibly. Anything could happen to anyone at any point. You could walk out of your door going to get some milk and be hit by a car. We can't wrap ourselves in cotton wool. Obviously, we have to be a bit more cautious because of the times, but you take calculated risks. Note another one. Logistically, how do you prepare for a marathon? Do you just go online and pay a fee and you're good? Or is there more to it? What can you elaborate on that, Mustafa? What do you mean? Have you found a marathon you want to do? Let me know a bit more about that one. Chris Rowley, you're a keen amateur. Is it worth getting a coach? Entirely up to you, Chris. I would always say a coach is worth it. I had a coach for many years myself. And actually, if nothing else, what a coach tends to give you is accountability. Your workouts go somewhere. And they also tend to reel you back more than push you. I think an athlete's default is to train hard. And I'm just going to turn the light on. An athlete's default is to train hard. And what a coach can do is almost tell you when to train hard and tell you when not to. But that being said, they're an expense. There's certainly an expense that possibly a lot of people don't need right now in these times. I think it's entirely personal. Like I say, I had a coach and I learned a lot from my coach, even though we were the same equivalent qualification. He had a very different angle and he was a brilliant coach, and we made really good relationships. So it's entirely up to you, really. Depends on how far down your journey you are as well, if you really want to take things to the next level. Scott, have I heard of the guy running a marathon in his back garden? I have, actually. And also, what would you recommend eating and drinking after strength and conditioning and weights training? Yes, I've heard of the guy running a marathon in his back garden. In fact, I'm hoping to do something similar in the near future, where I'm going to do an Ironman bike leg on my turbo trainer in the next month or so, I think. I don't know if I'll break it up into bits throughout the day, but that's one of my plans. after my strength, what you take on board. So when you're doing weight training, obviously lots of micro fractures in your muscles. You're tearing muscles so that they repair stronger, but they need protein to do so. So I tended to have, after weights training, a protein shake, a banana maybe as well for a bit of potassium. Or, you know, if you want to have your lunch, then I go eggs or something proteinous, chicken, that will help the muscles repair themselves in that golden half an hour. From aerobic training side, I tend to take on carbohydrates as soon as I get in, for the same reason. My body's more receptive to replenishing it. What's next? Jamie. Oh, yeah. I'll paraphrase, but you don't feel great, you want your park run back. Do your park run anyway. But yeah, it's the social aspect we're all missing, I think, and that has been hard. But you can still do your park run, even if you take your phone out and do it on Zoom. Like a lot of my tri club are doing turbo sessions where we're meeting up on Zoom and everyone's chatting and cycling around. And I don't see any reason that you couldn't do that while you're running as well, as long as there's a decent enough signal. Let's have a look. I've had some problems with my left kneecap in the last decade, dislocated twice. How do I boost my confidence when I run on my own? Oof, difficult one. I'm going to say that is more to do with lots of strength and conditioning in the background, because that really helps you psychologically. And then, is our food here? I think my food's here. Okay, I got to go soon because our food has turned up. Start slowly and cautiously and build up over time. I mean, there is no rush. Let's be honest. If you find nice flat surfaces as well, you're trying to make this a lifetime association. So don't rush it, and lots of strength and conditioning in the background. There's no qualification process for a marathon, Mustafa. You can sign up to any marathon that you pretty much that you want, that takes on sign up. Some are ballot. So you would have to enter a ballot for the big ones like London and New York and etc. But most marathons, you can just pay, sign up and start training. You don't have to qualify. Yeah, Alex, good to know that your coach has kept you from wrecking yourself with injury. That tends to be the number one job, I think, for me, is to stop my athletes overtraining rather than pushing them. That everyone loves to push themselves hard. It's reeling back and then pushing when it's necessary. Sia, if you feel like you're not making any progress on running for the past 2 years, how do you improve your times after you've reached personal best? That is a really complicated question I can't answer right now, but it will depend on how you're training. Are you taking your easy runs easy, or are you going out for every session and just beasting yourself? Because you will definitely reach a plateau very quickly if you're doing that. But I'd need more information. If you can tell me not in the chat, but in the comments of this video, and I can deal with that next week. Chris, no problem. And of course, yeah, I'll be doing these every Thursday. So you can always drop in and ask as many questions as you want. But I have to go now because my food is here and I'm super, super hungry. But like I say, always ask me questions on any videos. Try and watch some of the content on This Messy Happy as well. If you're interested in the psychology behind it, or some training sessions or some strength training sessions, there's lots of different bits to the channel that hopefully will help everybody out and you know, make you be the best you. That's my aim here, is to help you be the best version of you by trying to provide as much of my knowledge as I can to help. I've got to go, but Rod, write that in the comments. Write your question in the comments so I can remember it, and I will answer it next week. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you next week. Hope you have a really good weekend. And remember, if you've got your A race, keep training for it. Don't stop. Okay, that's important. This is just a blip. This is just a bump in the road. It will go, and we'll come out of this stronger for it. So keep training. Keep doing what you're doing. Right. See you next week.